Welcome back. We'll now go to our next committee, which is Parks and Recreation. That committee is chaired by Councilmember April Barker.
Hi, thank you very much. We have three items for committee. I'm joined with Councilmember Vargas and Murphy. The first is a community park in Cordata master plan adoption. Jonathan?
Actually, I'm going to start out with an introduction. Leslie Bryson, Parks and Recreation Director. First, I want to point out that July is National Parks and Recreation Month, so it's appropriate that we're here today with a plan for an exciting new community park in the north part of Bellingham. And Jonathan Schilk is going to make a presentation. First, I want to also point out that tonight you're going to be considering a rezone of this property to public so we can proceed with a park here. Normally, parks are allowed in every zone, but this property was zoned with a specific site plan, and that zoning needs to be changed to public so we can proceed. So your approval today of the master plan would be subject to the rezone of that property. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, council members. I'm Jonathan Schilk, Parks and Recreation Landscape Architect, and I'm here to present the Cordata Community Park master plan for your review and adoption. The park is situated in North Bellingham, east of Cordata Parkway, between Horton and Stewart Road. The red dot on the map up there shows the park location. Notice how the park fills a gap in a relatively sparse distribution of parks and open spaces. The 20.6 acre community park was purchased in 2015 for about $3.6 million. The park is located in the Cordata neighborhood and will serve the recreational needs of all people of Bellingham. The character of the park is an open rolling landscape, a remnant to the Wilder Ranch that operated in this location in the 1940s. The city began the master planning process in April 2016. During the design of the park master plan, we held 4 park committee meetings, 3 public meetings, 1 neighborhood meeting. We held other meetings with the city departments, the Cordata Design Review Committee, the Cordata Business Park Association, the City Planning Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Most of these meetings pertain to the park master plan. 1 neighborhood meeting and the Planning Commission meeting focused on the proposed rezone of the park. In short, it's been a robust public process. The adjacent land uses and zoning include commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential, shown up there on the map. There is a rezone proposed, as Leslie said, to change the park from mixed commercial, industrial, and residential to public, and the public hearing is tonight. The city is also in process of transferring ownership of this parcel to be incorporated into the park. We want the park to be a fun, attractive, and functional addition to the park system. The above things were considerations in the design, as well as complying with safe pedestrian and vehicular access, maintenance, and critical areas ordinance. 14% of the site is unencumbered by wetlands and related buffers. Unencumbered areas are shown in ivory, wetlands are blue, and buffers are green. We worked to avoid high-value wetlands and related buffers and to minimize disturbing other wetlands and buffers to a great extent without degrading public use of the park. Keeping the wetland impacts to less than half an acre avoids more costly regulatory permitting process and contains our mitigation costs. In the end, we anticipate that the proposed park master plan will directly impact 0.08 acre of wetland, 3.08 acre of buffer, and then indirectly impact 2.83 acres of wetland buffer. The wetland areas now on this map are shown in dark green. The purpose of this slide is to show you how we concentrated our park development in unencumbered areas and bridged between unencumbered areas with our trails in an efficient manner as possible in order to minimize impacts to the critical areas. And you can see up there like shadowy shapes of what the proposed developments are. Well, here's the proposed park master plan we included in your agenda, Bill. I'd like to zoom in on the graphic a little and explain the proposed park features. Zoom in on there. Okay. The Park Master Plan programming will appeal to a broad range of interests and activities, passive and active recreational opportunities appealing to all age groups. During the master planning process, a variety of desired recreational opportunities were identified by the public. These opportunities are shown on the plan above. Now, the park has two activity nodes. They're shown in red squares there, north and south. So let's look at the north node. The north node will include a 53-car paved and lighted parking area, two restroom building, room for any three of the following park uses that were requested during the public process: spray park, parkour, pump track, and adult exercise area. The final selection of these activities will happen in the next few months. We also want to incorporate area-efficient, on-the-fly play opportunities like Foursquare, hopscotch, and skate dot. And some of these kinds of opportunities exist in some form in other community and neighborhood parks. Other park facilities will include a reservable park shelter, say it's about 30 or 60 feet, 30 by 60 feet, with water and electrical services and a children's playground. Well, here's a few images to help you see what I'm talking about. These facilities exist in other city parks, and the proposed facilities will be selected to fit the site. These are intended to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Some of them are Squalicum Creek Park, Roosevelt Park, Franklin Park. And some of these are not at any of our parks. For instance, the pump track, parkour, adult exercise, and of course we do have a spray park at two of our parks. So let's jump to the south node. The south activity node includes additional parking, park pavilion and children's activity area, sport courts, which include pickleball and basketball, small picnic shelter and trail connections, and a small covered stage. And here are some other images of what I'm talking about. There's pickleball, covered stage, and basketball. And of course, the park pavilion. The proposed park pavilion will be similar to those already in Fairhaven and Bloedel Donovan Park in terms of size and function. The one that we are proposing for Cardata Park will be about 2,000 square feet and include meeting space, restroom facilities accessible from inside and outside, kitchen area, mechanical space, and outdoor gathering area. We'd also like to incorporate sustainable design features listed above. Those kinds of design features we incorporated into the Environmental Learning Center at Maritime Heritage Park. And then there are enhanced pedestrian access points into the park. The enhanced pedestrian access points are intended to help satisfy Cordata Design Review Committee requirements to enhance the visual and physical connection between the street and the park. Although there's no design for these access points, but I think we could design a good celebratory pedestrian scale gateway at these access points. And there are opportunities for small gathering areas, some sort of an artistic expression, comfortable places for someone to wait for someone before entering the park. And they also might be a perfect parklet approach to the design as well. And then there's the plan includes an open lawn area for casual play and possibly practice, and a 4,400 linear foot gravel trail system all throughout. And then finally, we have to mitigate all the impacts to the critical areas on the site. We propose to concentrate tall overstory planting in the dark green areas. This will satisfy the public demand to preserve the open rolling character of the site, long views to the Chuckanuts. Other mitigation activities will include protective fencing, some signage, dog waste stations, and perhaps short plantings in areas negotiated with the biologists, and that would be located like around trails and enhance some of the existing wetland areas. So this concludes my presentation, and thank you for listening. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for all your work with the community and especially the neighborhood in trying to come up with this plan. I have some comments, but I'll open it up to committee first, if you all have any.
I have a couple of questions. I just want to thank you for all the work that you did on this. I know this community has been waiting for a park for a very long time, so thank you for the work that you did on this. But I honestly think we can do a little better. There were some concerns in regards to the parking is at the front and center of the park. When we want to draw people in and draw community and draw children in, parking isn't going to do that. Is there any way that we could maybe move the parking back a little bit farther and put the playground a little bit closer to the front so it actually draws in community?
So you were talking about taking this parking area here and then moving it to the east?
Yeah, because that doesn't, driving by a parking lot is not going to make me pull into a park. I want to entice people to come to the park and to share, and I feel like a parking lot in the front is kind of it's not.
One of the reasons that we end up putting them closer to the road is it does provide somewhat of a buffer between things like playgrounds and a busy road, not only for noise, but also for some more protection for the kids. So maybe we can do something between the parking lot and the road that makes that also more of a celebratory entrance as we're looking down to the south. And also, the further away you put the parking from the road, you might increase your utility costs or your stormwater costs. But we can maybe tweak that a little bit to help it be a little more. It's a park, not a parking lot.
It's a park, not a parking lot.
And that frontage is a very small part of that frontage. But I hear what you're saying. It's a difficult balance.
Yeah, and I think, so I kind of went through this a little bit, and actually it was brought to my attention by another developer in the area about fairness, that many times our planning department makes a more formal urban design approach and says, no, we want your parking toward the back, and they do have to encumber higher costs on moving utilities and the road and thus. However, I do understand that this is a unique situation where this is not coming through our planning department for having to abide by city codes. It's having to go through the Cordata Design Review Committee and the PUD, which originally, if you would, Jonathan, go all the way back to the actual picture you have of an aerial view of the Cordata Parkway. So a lot of these neighbors are driving down and complaining about the speeds on Cordata, and you can see the impacts of the PUD originally in how they wanted to do things. They said push the parking close to the road. And now over time we've really learned that when you move the parking away from the road, it develops, well, it can be traffic calming, it develops more a sense of community. And so you have all these dwelling units and complaining of the speed down Cordata because there's really nothing that grabs your attention. It's a lot of parking lots. And I think that it's up to us to really show an example of how we want to see things developed here. And I did read the minutes from the Cordata Design Review Committee, and 4 of the 5 members all suggested the same thing. And I see in their notes that it said, Jonathan, you would give consideration to moving activities towards street edge and parking further from street. Have you gone back to them to address their concerns of the design?
I have not.
Okay. So
I just got their minutes in June.
Oh, okay. So I would agree, and I don't know specifically if you need to move it where, I think that's up to staff to really, to look at that and to ensure that, one, as more things to develop there, and I can see that the Cordata PUD is starting to kind of transform the way they look at things too, that again, we're really showing them a great example of really formal, excellent urban design layout, and we're also showing that community that that we're really paying attention to them. I mean, as you've mentioned, they just got their first picnic bench 2 years ago. So that's a pretty darn big deal, and I think this park has to be absolutely the best park we could possibly do. So I personally would like, before we adopt this master plan, that we see what that would look like. Because I don't know if you could just right now say before adopting the master plan that we're going to move the parking away from the road. I think it would be important for us to see that. Do you agree? The other question I had in attending, I attended 2 out of the 3 meetings. One I want to address, this is an opportunity for us to really look at how we do outreach, and it's very common through all of our departments, and it's the way that we've done things. So I'm not criticizing whatsoever the way we did it. I think we were doing status quo, but we had meetings 3 different times in the same location at the same time of night, and typically on the same day of the week. And so we often got exactly the same people responding to us. So I was one of 2 people that attended that had young children, and this whole area, we're having to redraw the lines around Cordata Elementary. We had to just figure out how to pull 100 kids out of that school because it's growing so fast with children. So I think it shows that we're going to have to really look at different ways to start doing outreach to ensure that we're really getting a wide breadth and giving a lot of different opportunity for people to give us their opinions and let us know what they should do. In that, I went to the Cordata, 2 Cordata meetings at the school, and I shared with you, I got over 20 families that are willing to be part, and thank you. I know you're going to be including them in the next process, but every single one of them I had said, because the original plan didn't have a water park in it, and every single one of the parents were like, you cannot build this park without a water park. Like, we have to have a water park. And I appreciate that it says or water park, so when you come back, I would like it to specifically, because my worry is, I don't think it will happen, but when people are looking, I know we know our intent, but when people are looking at this, they're thinking the water park is a maybe, or water park, and I think they need to know whether we know exactly where we want to put it or not, there will be a water park. And hopefully it will be the best darn water park we've ever seen in Bellingham for all these kids living out there. So that would be my other recommendation, and I don't know if you all agree as well. Yes, Pinky.
Actually, that was my second point. Okay. As the little kid in me, to see or spray park is like heartbreaking, because the spray park is one of the things that as a child you all play together and everybody loves it, and it always feels like community and it always feels special, and we don't have a lot of parks up there. So I don't think it should be an option. Can you go to the slide, Jonathan, where you're showing the 2 differences with the parks of possible and
The north node.
the north,
Yeah.
and
The
no,
blow-up.
keep going. Sorry, it actually has the utilities or the structures of what can be happening at the. There it is. Okay, wait, one slide before. Okay, how much fun does that look like?
Yeah, it does.
All right, let's go to the next slide. How much fun does that look like? All right, so we have an opportunity, I think, to create something special, to give a very large community that does not have a park, and to do the best that we can do. And I know the Parks Department does a great job of trying to do that, so I just want to call us to make sure that we are doing everything we can, and it includes not an or, but a spray park.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything, Councilmember Murphy?
I'm just excited about the eventual development of this. I'm the youth director for my tribe, and I am constantly looking for places to bring 85 small members of my tribe. And I would just love to say an additional spray park in our community would help so tremendously for our needs, but I think also for all the community needs. And I'd love to just give some more time to this, to get maybe some more community input, and then get some more consideration for the master plan.
Okay. Anybody else have any comment? Michael?
I have a comment and a question. The comment is I'm a big supporter of what I call all ages play structures, places that teenagers, young adults can, like the parkour, that little kids can also play on. So I like seeing those elements. I really want to make sure they're there too. My question had to do with, Jonathan, you mentioned protective fencing. When I looked at this, and it's very much wetland encumbered, and what sort of look will there be to prevent people from walking right across the wetland? How do we make sure that people play where they're supposed to play and don't go where they're not supposed to go?
Honestly, I don't think that we can prevent anybody from walking wherever they want in the wetland areas, but we
Okay.
can remind them, please don't. And so in our park system, we have our standard 2-rail fences that go along the trails. We have in many areas, and that's a visual reminder to keep them on the trail. We have signs that say, plants grow by the inch, but die by the foot. We
Right.
have those along our trails.
Yeah, so no chain link fences, but
No chain link
reminders.
fences. And we also, when I was talking about the low plants, we were thinking about the lower growing native roses that grow along the trails that would tend to grow in thickets that would prevent people from going past them because they kind of hurt.
I would really encourage that. I know, for example, there's the open play field, which goes right up against one particular wetland. I'm just suggesting that we should do kind of a semi-engineered approach, like the thicket, a physical barrier that's still park-like, so that people don't unintentionally do what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and I think that would eventually come in the design phase. So, Councilmember Hamel?
Thank you for recognizing me. I'm absolutely in favor of the splash park as well. I think people ask, why not like, a pool or something like that? But the liability and the risk of that, and people can drown. This is much safer. The question I have is the pump. It's item 22 on page 110. It's pump track phase 1 at 41,160. That's the cost for it. And that is my understanding that pump tracks cost about $40,000 to $45,000 depending on several factors. Is the Mountain Bike Association interested in helping with this project?
They have indicated, but in our cost estimate, we make the assumption that we would be paying for it. So because of the amount of room at the site, there were several items that came up: spray park, pump track, parkour, and adult exercise area. But of those 4, we felt we maybe only have room for 3, although we know the spray park is really, really important. So we've been talking recently about trying to incorporate the adult exercise equipment around the children's play area, and then we would still have room for a pump track, a parkour, and a spray park. So, but we didn't want to modify the plan until we came today and say, well, we have these options. We would love to do them all, but it'll be subject to budget. But I'm definitely hearing today that a spray park is a high priority.
Any other committee members or members of the council? I think I would say, as you're going back to, I did see the recommendation from Cordata Design Review Committee was concerned that the pickleball was pushed more toward the residential, and they had suggested to actually maybe flip the parking on your on the other side there. That is prime for development, more housing, and pickleball can be quite noisy. I don't know if that's the right spot, but if we're doing a master plan, and since you're going to go back and take a look, maybe just to retake a look at that, so we're being considerate of the Cordata Design Review Committee's recommendations. Otherwise, I would also encourage, I think, Michael, you said integrated uses, and there's examples of parkour, just like what you showed with the senior activity where they're balancing onto, so you could really, I think in our society we've kind of segregated ourselves in so many different ways, even in our parks, and it would be so nice to see teenagers using the same stuff as seniors, using the same stuff as toddlers, and so I think that's an opportunity for us to learn how to engage with each other. And that will be more in the actual design of it. So do you have enough direction to go forward from us before you come back with the master plan?
I believe we do.
Okay.
So we'll look at looking at some options for parking and addressing your comments.
And I do want to acknowledge, Jonathan, that you're having to really straddle trying to get the best uses with how much something's going to cost, like a road or a park far away. So I don't want to minimize how difficult that is, and that you're really trying to maximize the amount you can put into the fun stuff of the park. So thank you for drawing the attention to that and making sure we're able to be fiscally responsible with that money. Okay, is that it? All right. Okay, we'll move on to our second item. Rejection of a bid for Whatcom Falls Park, Wilburn Trail, and parking. Leslie.
Again, Leslie Bryson, Parks and Recreation Director. We put out a bid for this project to put in a small parking area on Woburn Street at the Woburn Street entrance to Whatcom Falls Park. There are a couple little areas there where cars pull off now to formalize that parking and to improve the trail that currently goes up the hill. It's muddy and it's steep.
Oh, yeah.
We only received 2 bids, unfortunately. The lowest bid was 30% over our budget. And we feel that it's just not a good bidding climate right now. Contractors are extremely busy, and we'd like to reject these bids and rebid this again in the winter.
Okay. Committee? Roxanne.
I'll just move that we reject the bid for Whatcom Falls Park, Woburn Trail.
Any further discussion? Council members? Okay, we have a motion to reject all bids. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we'll move on to our, we'll bring that forward to the committee of the whole. Okay, our third item is update on park level service study and other work program items.
Okay, this is a outcome of our comp plan update last year, where council gave direction to look at some alternative levels of service, and Nicole Oliver has been working on that. She's also going to give an update on the park prescriptions program, our Greenway 4 planning efforts, and a park impact fee update.
Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Oliver, Parks Development Manager. I'm going to give you and I apologize for handing this out right before the meeting, but I knew Michael would have way too much time if I gave it to him too far in advance. So this is just a beginning look at some data that we're putting together, and I wanted to acknowledge Ann Stark's help with the GIS side of things. So I'll be covering the level of service analysis we've done so far. I have some really interesting stuff to show you about park prescriptions that has made huge headway, where we're at with Greenways 4 planning, and how we're going to be updating the park impact fee. Also, I've put in some Essence of Bellingham photos. There's so many of the parks, and I'm going to be updating the website with those too. So what we did, I gave you a handout so you can use this as we go along. I'm going to show you a lot of maps, and it will help for you to see which neighborhoods are in which areas as we go through, but the numbers are what you want to look at. We couldn't study each neighborhood individually. It's too much information. So we really decided the best way to do it would be to break it down into areas using the natural boundaries like I-5, Whatcom Creek, where people can tend to circulate around the same community and neighborhood parks in those areas. And then we took data. We have population, both current and future. We have acreage by type, miles of trails. And then I took out of Kayenta the average maintenance costs that we've spent, park operations have spent in each neighborhood and community park, averaged annual amount over the last 3 years. We have a huge spreadsheet of amenities that is still not completed yet, where we decided to do a cumulative, give each amenity 1 point so that you'll get a score, so we'll be able to see on a map whether a park has 3 things to do or 18 things to do. So that part is we're still working on. We got some income data, but to be honest, it didn't change much. It's really, the income didn't do much as far as across areas. It didn't show any real significant change, but we do have the free and reduced lunch program, and we could add minority populations is another thing that we could use. So still refining and mapping. I welcome your feedback on that. But we're calling this an analysis, not a tool, because I don't really see how we're going to end up with a tool. I think we're going to use it as an analysis to help us prioritize capital funding, help you prioritize capital funding. And I will be sharing this with Greenways Advisory Committee. So here are our areas. We broke them down by acreage as one way to at least get rid of one of the apples to apples, make something apples to apples. So we tried to use neighborhood boundaries and equalize acreage. And you see I-5 right down the center. So here's the estimated population. We've got pretty much equal population in areas 2 and 3 right across the middle of the city. And the future population, the change, the additional population that's coming over the next 20 years is going to be concentrated in the north by a long ways. So we already knew this. A lot of this is stuff we already knew, but it's nice to see it in a map. Here are the percent current from the school district of free and reduced lunches. Far and away, the highest is in Area 1 in the north. Miles of trails per study area. We have Fairhaven Park and Padden. Lake Padden have the most trails in them. That's in the south. And then it gets lesser as you head north. But we're going to be working on that with our new park. Here are the community park acres per area. Again, in Area 4, we have Whatcom Falls, Civic, and Lake Padden. Very heavy concentration of community parks. Open space acres, those are areas that we own, that we've acquired in various ways, that some of which we maintain, but they're just additional green open space that the city owns. Those are just strictly acres by area. And this is just neighborhood parks. So community parks are the great big ones. These are the little neighborhood ones. And we do have quite a few right along the center. Don't forget that our big open circles in the comp plan are along that Bakerview corridor. So we are actively seeking locations for neighborhood parks in that area. But this is kind of a more cumulative look. Where most of the people are is where we do have a lot of neighborhood park acres. This is, remember our level of service is acres of park per thousand. This is people per park acre. It's a little different way of looking at it. In the south, we have less people per park acre than we have in the north, and with the additional anticipated population growth, that problem is going to get considerably worse.
Nicole,
Yes.
Does that include the new park we just talked about? That's factored in?
No, that's called open space still. It's not developed yet. This is people per park, excluding community parks, as a way of really looking again just at neighborhood parks. We've got a lot more people in those areas 2 and 3 and the north when you look at it per acre per person by area. And then looking in the future, again, where we have the most anticipated growth is where we're going to have more people per park acre. And now this is money. This is the amount spent annually, 2014 through 2016, averaged over 3 years, with community parks, where we spend most of our money by a long shot. It's where we have the most people coming. It's a lot bigger space. We maintain bigger facilities versus without community parks, just the neighborhood parks. We spend, it looks like, the most in Area 2, which is Birchwood, Columbia, Cornwall Park, Sunnyland, and Leonard Streets, just to remind you. Okay, before I move on, do you have any questions about that, or do you want me to save the questions for the end?
I'll start with the committee. What would you like?
You mind if Michael asks? Okay. Michael, did you have a pressing question?
It's sort of a question. I mean, I understand why you went to these larger service areas, but I feel that level of analysis is going to miss certain things. So, for example, if you look at the one where neighborhood parks, Area 3, which includes Roosevelt, looks like it's got a whole lot of parks by that measure. But then when you kind of turn the page, when people per park, well, now you've got a whole lot of people per park. It seems like there's a picture that's still being missed when you divide it at this coarse level. Do you know what I'm saying? That I understand why it's very hard to get smaller levels, but it seems to me those smaller levels are where you understand, oh, we've got an important gap here in Roseville, or an important gap here in Happy Valley, or important gap here kind of on the edge near Alderwood, right? That these larger areas are going to miss those neighborhood-sized gaps.
That is where I think in the comprehensive plan, our half-hour walking, a half-mile walking radius, we're going to get at those gaps, and we already know about those gaps. We have clearly defined those gaps. This is really trying to get at a little more direction for major capital improvements and making sure that we understand where our amenities are. And I think once we add in the variety of amenities, that's where we're going to really see that we need to have a little more additional amenities in some of these areas that don't have them. But it's hard to break it down because of the community parks really skew things, and we're going to have something pretty close to that once we build Cordata. But right now, the north needs more. But what we could end up with is maybe looking at each area at a more individual basis in some sort of a pie that could get us a little bit of a better. I'm imagining some sort of a pie chart, so you could look. I want to be able to compare things visually across these areas with colors, and we're still working on it. So,
I think I'm going to go ahead and have committee respond to this, since Parks prescription is a little bit different, so that we can make sure you have
That's
direction
why I
to move forward.
Pause,
So I would say in some agreement with Michael in the sense that originally when this was brought up, it was looking a little bit more through a microscope, in the sense of we have areas like, even whenever you brought up the Birchwood Columbia, well, Columbia, there's an area where you can walk to 7 parks within 1 mile, and there's quite a few single-family homes that have that level of service. And then you go along West Maplewood that has just as many children being serviced by that little tiny park behind Shuckson that is servicing all of Elizabeth Park, and you look at the maintenance and the attention over time and the land. Well, when you look at it from this level, it says, well, we're doing a really great job. But when you really start peeling back the onion to look at that equitable, really we should be doing all we can to that park over in Shuckson to ensure that those that are living marginalized, living with larger health risks, all of those things that low-income families deal with, or families that are living within low-income wages, it's where we're not going to be able to see it. And so whenever a large group is coming in and advocating, like I'm trying to think as a council member, it makes it a lot easier to be able to go back and be able to show people you're on a great start, to really show, like, here's how we're going to make our decisions and base it on it. But that's how whenever we have to go buy a neighborhood park, I mean, in Birchwood, you'll see we purchased one that was right next to all the single-family homes, and then we put in a huge community park that was buffering 2 single-family areas. But yet that our major multifamily area got very little attention, if any. And so how do we, as we make decisions and parks making decisions, and as our council changes and leadership changes, how do we really make sure we're honing in that ability to really look at that piece? And that's what the tool would be for. Is that helpful?
It is helpful, but it's just really hard to get there because there's 26 neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And how do you decide how to split them up so that it's manageable and understandable? I would love to have more feedback, but we really are grappling with the reasonableness of the exercise in grasping something that was useful. But I do think adding more demographic stuff might help us understand things a little bit better.
Especially as we've segregated ourselves as a society, so it's not that hard to figure out through our zoning who's living where.
And we do know, we do know some things, and if you look at the priorities in the comp plan now, they are prioritizing those underserved areas. This is an additional information, more factual about where we really are spending things. And
other council members, before we leave, this is our only time to give them direction on the level of service.
I just wanted to say this is really interesting information. I do agree. I would like it to be a little bit more granular and a little bit more detail. I know it's a tough task. I appreciate the work that goes into it, but I think that this gives us a nice snapshot, but I think a little bit more granular
areas?
in regards to neighborhood, because we kind of probably could have guessed some of this stuff, but getting down a little bit more into neighborhoods might give us more substantial data. But thank you for this.
It might be a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, and I do really projecting that growth. Thank you for doing
Yeah.
that. And we're going to need to continue to do that. I mean, unless we're able to figure out some way to integrate our neighborhoods and our populations, we're just going to continue kind of this segregated mode. And we're going to have to make sure that we're servicing our families living in low-income areas as well, if not better, than our families that are being serviced by single-family neighborhood zones. So with that, I'd say we can move forward to Parks Prescription.
So Parkscriptions, great segue. The whole vision and purpose is to connect people from all walks of life so that they can enjoy healing and community through nature. It's really about trying to connect people who aren't enjoying the outdoors or may not even know where to go or what to do or how easy it could be to get there. This group, led by Recreation Northwest, I'm on the advisory committee, and they got a great grant from the National Park Service with 3 fantastic people plus a technical team. And the progress they've made is phenomenal in a very short amount of time. So the pilot has launched at Family Care Network. They have integrated this thing I'm going to show you into their intake now, and doctors are prescribing Parkscriptions on a pilot basis. Right now. So we just got this, and what we did was we used a Washington, D.C. Park RX platform and put 182 Whatcom County parks are now in this system. And we are going to make it look and feel like our program, but this is just the data in the system that you can search on. So if you put in 98225, you get 22 results on a map. And if you filter those results to, let's say, I want to walk on an easy trail and I want to bring my dog. And it narrows it down from 22 down to 6. Then you can pick which one you want to look at. So the medical provider can look for your address, the patient's address, and find out what is closest. And then using software in a live is always risky. There we go. Then you get a PDF that gives you all of the amenities in an icon version. It gives you a big map and how to get there, that there's a bus, it's ADA, what type of park it is, some basic features, and all the different amenities you can find there, your trails, the distances, the width, loop and linear, what you can do there, and they can write an actual prescription and say, go to this park 3 times a week and take this loop. And then when they come back, they added it to their follow-up. So we're going to actually track progress and see if it actually makes a difference and people are participating. Of the healthcare providers that have heard about this, every single one of them is dying to use it. So it's going to be, I think it's going to grow faster than we even think, but we're piloting at a more realistic, trying to really do it right. So that's Parkscriptions. I didn't really have to do anything except show up and edit the goals and mission statement. It was great. There was
And that was
great
Recreation
team.
Northwest that did
they're
all
leading
of the
it.
heavy
They
lifting
did.
on this, which is...
And the grant team has been amazing.
Okay. Any questions from our committee? Okay. Rest of council?
Okay.
You know, this might be a very interesting way to... I can see where you put them together, but it's an easy way to mine in really quick and then if you were to able to couple that, I mean, I almost like the way it had little bullets and dots versus just a color.
I know.
So that we can really
I
see.
saw this after I was already.
Yeah, and as you develop this,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know how difficult it is, but when somebody then goes to the park, if it would be really easy to, you know, I found this to be very easy or hard, or give some feedback as to their experience, that you all could have even more information. But yeah, I think there's a connection there. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but I think I see what you're saying.
There's lots of data we can use, and it's
Yeah.
available, and now it's mapped, which is
Yeah.
great. Okay,
Okay.
Greenways. The Greenways Advisory Committee, I'm working with them monthly. They're doing some field trips. They're having some special work sessions. We've narrowed down the task, focused it. We're looking at the strategic plan that was last officially updated in 2011. Took a couple years to do that one. We are not going to take a couple years. We're going to do it a lot more quickly. We're going to focus on the first 2 years and some guiding principles for the remainder of the levy, and come back and update it each year, or each 2 years probably, so that we'll be able to make some recommendations on the next budget, the biennium budget. And let's see, we're using the Pro Plan, we're using their established priorities. They have an amazing number of documents that guide the way we acquire and prioritize greenways. And then we anticipate having a draft to you by September or October.
All right. Committee? Good? Rest of the council? All right, thank you so much.
Wait,
for your...
I got one more.
Oh, one more.
Park
Trying to
impact
rush you out
fee.
the door. So sorry, I'm not meaning to do that.
Park impact fee, looking at updating the system costs and with the new population forecast. It's a formula. It's based on a per capita cost of maintaining the current system. We are going to modify it based on a calculation using the number of bedrooms instead of multifamily and single family. Census data is tracked a different way, and you can have a 4-bedroom apartment and a 1-bedroom single-family house, and the single-family house is getting charged quite a bit more. So we want to do it on a per-bedroom, probably a tiered structure, working with planning on that, and doing quite a bit of outreach with the development community and the BIA. But we want to implement the new fees by January of 2018, so that will be coming to you again also this fall. Lastly, if you haven't been down to Maritime Park,
I have
Okay.
a comment for that, and so does somebody else. So I would caution that you keep an eye on the unintended consequences of that. So we currently in multifamily, we're hearing from constituents that they're frustrated that we're getting a lot of studios built, maybe only 2 bedrooms. We're not getting those family apartments that are really necessary. So when you work with those stakeholders to really find out, is there going to be some disparate impacts on almost incentivizing building those smaller units that really aren't helping out our families that are dealing with some really difficult burden situations?
well, I think tiering it, right now we only have 2 choices, so we're going to try and actually make it more
Just
equitable.
a heads up.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And then Michael had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first to the tiering. The whole issue of tiering of impact fees actually was discussed 6-8 years ago. I think Mr. Gardner did some of the work on that. There are state laws that indicate your tiering can't be arbitrary, and I recall a fair amount of factual data. I think moving towards a tiering is a really good idea. I'm just saying, I think there's already been some work. I don't know if you've already got that work.
There is, yep.
Okay, great.
We have a lot of good work.
And then I just also wanted to comment on the fact that this impact fee issue relates directly to the level of service issue, because they both have to do with hopefully guiding our spending and also knowing how much we spend, so that the money we do spend is most well focused, and also so we don't overcharge. You know, I mean, I'm a big supporter of, philosophically and practically speaking, of park impact fees, but I still want to keep those fees as low as as low as possible, high enough to pay for what we need, but no higher.
Well, yeah, and I'd say that's exactly why they're here, and I know Leslie has brought this up before, wanting to make sure that we're being fair with this, so I appreciate you bringing it forward. And Maritime Heritage.
One more. Maritime. Have you been down there recently? So the ambassadors wanted to personally invite you to please come down and meet with them. They're there 7 days a week. They have the games out 11/5. It's been a pretty extraordinary turnaround that we're seeing this season after several years of concentrated effort. And it's a lot of fun. You can play chess. I didn't see this, but I heard that there were 2 police officers playing chess with 2 homeless people at the same time. It was really awesome. I wish I had a picture, but I didn't. So that's all.
Oh,
Any other
Roxanne.
questions?
I was at Maritime Heritage on the 4th of July, and I got some great community feedback. Could we turn that into more of an event to activate Maritime Heritage for that night especially? And they also wanted to know if we could temporarily shut the lights off while the fireworks
Oh,
are
for
going.
4th of July.
So, feedback provided. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Parks Department. You do really heavy lifts, and I know we have a lot of feedback for you, but thank you for being receptive to that and your time. End of committee.